So yesterday we were discussing about pod autoscaler, how autoscaling works, pod autoscaling. And based on the load, we were able to scale up, scale down the pods automatically. And we started understanding about volumes. So how to use volumes, we will discuss now. We'll try to deploy this application, this Spring Boot application, whatever we have with Mongo database. So I ask you to create manifest file for this one. Is anyone able to create and make it up and running? I hardly see response, like only one or two guys give an attempt. I see only two people at least tried. What about others? It's very simple task, right? I ask you to just create a manifest file. Okay. I ask you to create a manifest file and deploy the application. That is what we do. Once you get into a job, or that is what our job, right? We have to deploy our applications in a Kubernetes cluster. Once you get into a job, we need to start writing all the files, whatever we are discussing here. So there are two people, like almost they reached, but there are small issues. So let's continue. Okay, right. We'll try to create. I will directly create in a server and show that. So let me log into the server. Let me give. Let me create a manifest for our application. So let me take, I think Hashib has shared the YML, whatever he has tried, but let me take that and show what is the mistakes we have there. So if you see here, this is not correct. The environment is not under ports. Okay. So environment is not under ports. This is not correct. Again, environment is not environment, it is env. It has two things, name and value. In the class yesterday also I have shown, it will be something like this, name and value. Name and value. So this is this one. Type rolling update. You have not given rolling update options. This option. Whatever you want to give. And minimum ready seconds. Whatever you want to give. And then coming to the deployment, okay, this is fine deployment. This is not required because we are not going to update database every time. We are just deploying. You can take replica set or deployment directly, whatever you want to take. And here again selector is missing. Again here selector is missing. Whatever you have given here. And again this is env, name, value, name and value, ports, container port 27017. This is just one replica. You can, we don't need two replicas database. So for service, right? Type node port, selector, app, whatever you have given here. Ports. This is front-end application. I'm mapping it to default port. Target port 8080. And then I need one more service. One more service for this database. We need service for database. So we need to create a service for database. Again, API version v1 kind service metadata name spec type cluster IP ports. Here port, this is not a front-end application, this is database, right? We are using this port as is 27017. It is not front-end application. It is not a web application. This is not a web service. So Mongo database port, we are mapping with as is. Target port. What is target port? What is target port now for that one? Target port is 8080. I am creating a service for database. What is the database port? Again, this is wrong. 8080. This is. What is the target port for database? I am creating a service for database. 27017 and selector. App, whatever you have given, MongoDB. Praveen has almost done, he has done 2 mistakes. Praveen Polepalli, he has done almost, has done only 2 mistakes. One is he mapped with port 80 here. And another one is the service name he has given as a Mongo SVC, but here for a front-end application, what is the host name he passed? Mongo. Here you are passing host name as Mongo. Here you are creating service name as Mongo SVC. Will it work? Will it able to identify? If you see the error, whatever screenshot you shared, it was showing unknown host exception, Mongo. Unknown host exception, Mongo. Because here you are passing host name. Front-end application is trying to connect backend as a service name using Mongo. Here you have created as a Mongo SVC. That is one mistake. And here another one is this port. So I have not externalized the port here. If you see for front-end application, we have not externalized the port. We are only externalized the host name. The port is 27017, the default port. If you see, port is not externalized because that is database port. It is not front-end application. So 27017, that is the port, the service port also. So this is, let me take this one and let me use my image instead of, if this is also, let me try. If it works, it works. Otherwise, I will use my image. Whatever, Spring Boot. Let me take this one. So indentation. Under template, again indentation. Then again here the indentation problem. That's why I'm every day I'm saying don't copy paste YMLs, whatever I'm sharing. Try to write on your own. By looking at the running notes, try to type so that you can understand what you are typing. In the interview, they will ask you to write some sample manifest. If you don't practice now, if you are not able to create on your own, then what do you write? So this is my YML. Okay. So let me apply this. Before applying this, I don't have anything except this application. Let me apply this. There is a issue at line number 26. Line number 26, we don't have anything here. Let me do one thing. I will add one by one. So line number 26 in the sense not might be here, guys. It might be another. This will separate YML from again. Here there might be another line. Okay. So let me see if I have some issue here. (28) also same problem. If you see, there might be some additional spaces. Additional tab spaces, hidden tab spaces. So error validating, deployment strategy rolling update, unknown field, max. There is a typo. Max unavailable. Again containers, unknown field, container port. So here there is a typo. Container port, P should be caps. And again here ports, container port. So here everything is correct. So let me apply one more time. So required field selector missing. So here also you missed selector. Match labels app Spring app. Line number 23, again there is an issue. In the second one, maybe here. Here. Some hidden spaces, also a problem. So here, some here there is no space. So lot of mistakes, right? API version, for which one API version is not set. So here, instead of API version, Hashib has given app version. So this is the final YML. This is the final YML. Now let's see. This is the final YML. Now the front end, I'll share in a running notes. I'll share in a running notes. So front end application is running as two parts. Back end application database part is running. There is a service for front end type node port, for back end type cluster IP, right? Now let's access our application, the front end application using this node port. So this is the IP address. I am using one of the server IP and node port. Our application is running on a root context. Our application is running on a root context. So I'm not giving any context here, root context. Our application is running on a root context, this one. So now dev db, something is wrong with password. What is the error? Unexpected error, internal server 500, exception authenticating MongoDB credentials, username devdb, password cat, username devdb, password devdb@123 here, MongoDB username, MongoDB password devdb@123, MongoDB hostname, MongoDB password, MongoDB username. MongoDB username is correct. MongoDB password is correct. Environment variable. And let me see, I think the version of the image which I am using, the version of the image which I am using is might be old image. The version of the image which I am using is not having that code. Let me rebuild the image. Let me see when I have built the image. So I think this is very old image. So let me use version 1, because the code which is there as part of this image is not using the username and password. So that is a problem. So I will update the image version as 1, or I will rebuild the code, or I will rebuild the code. If you see, this is very old image. Later, there is some changes in the code that is not built. So I am using this image. Let me redeploy. Since I am using a deployment, if you see the rolling update, since there is a change in the image version, it is creating latest containers. Once these latest containers are ready, this old pod will be deleted. So let's wait for some time till the latest code is being deployed. So now the pods are deployed, latest pods. This will be terminated based on the minimum ready seconds. I have given minimum ready seconds as 60. So after 60 seconds, this old pod will be terminated as per the deployment, whatever we discussed yesterday. Now, this old pod is getting terminated. Now let me access this application. So let me rebuild, guys. There is something wrong in the code. Let me rebuild the code. So this is my Docker file for this application. Here I am passing host name, DB name, password. That is also correct. So here I am getting authentication exception. And this is my YML file. We passed username, password. initdb root username, initdb root password. Yes, these environment variables are wrong. I didn't check this one. If you see, what is the environment variable here? This one. initdb username, initdb root password. This is what the environment variables we have to pass for a database. So let me again change my YML. Now let's wait. There is an error, crash loop backup. Failed to start container, kubectl logs. Missing Mongo initdb root username or initdb root password. Mongo initdb. Since I am using replica set, whatever changes I delete, whatever changes I made in YML, that will not reflect. So I am deleting the replica set and again I am applying. So now let's see. Now let's access the application. Now front end is able to talk to the back end and it is inserting the data. So this is the YML file which we are using, right? So this is our job. We have to deploy our applications to create all the manifest, right? As a DevOps engineer, you might need to create these manifest files and deploy. So this is our job, right? If you keep practicing, you will realize the mistakes. If you see, almost 30 minutes we spent. I took someone file and I am correcting that. So this is the final YML using which we deployed our application. Now let's try to understand the concept now, volumes concept. Now I am inserting the data. There are two pods, front end pod and back end pod. Now front end is stateless application. This is stateless. These pods are stateless. Do I need to worry if some pods are going down and coming up? If these pods are gone, crashed, and Kubernetes is recreating, do I need to worry? Is my data is lost? Whatever data I have here, there is no change. So these are stateless applications, these applications. But what if my database pod is gone? My database pod. Now my database data is in this kubectl exec ls/data/db. So this is where my database data is there in this Kubernetes pod. Inside that container, this is where I have a data. Now if my pod is gone, my container is gone. If my pod is gone, my container is gone. Pod is, I'm intentionally deleting the pod. I'm intentionally deleting the pod. Since we are using replica set, again I got a pod, database pod. But what about data? Will I have a data now, whatever it was persisted earlier? Do you see the data? The data is lost. So again, how to use volumes here? Kubernetes volumes, right? As of now, did I specified volumes for this pod container? As of now, did I specified volumes for this pod container here? If you see under containers, under pod spec, did we specified volumes as of now? We have not used volumes. So Kubernetes supports lot of volumes. Kubernetes supports lot of volumes. Based on your underlying infrastructure, it supports lot of volumes. Same thing, same volume concept, right? When your applications are running as a container, when container is crashed, your data is lost. If container is recreated, your data is lost. So same like Docker has a concept of volumes. Similarly, Kubernetes also supports many type of volumes. pod can use n number of volumes simultaneously. There are a lot of volume types. There are a lot of volume types, like we have a lot of volumes, Kubernetes volumes. So we have a lot of like volumes like this. If my Kubernetes cluster is a managed Kubernetes cluster, I can use this. In AWS, I can use EBS. If my Kubernetes is running on Azure cloud, I can use Azure disk or Azure file. If my Kubernetes cluster is running on Google cloud, I can use Google clouds, this volume, Google persistent disk, right? I can use something like this. So I can use host path, I can use config map, mtdir. Like there are a lot of value types based on the underlying infrastructure. You can use these type of values. Persistent value claim. So these two are very important. So I'll come to this, what is persistent volume, what is persistent volume claim. You can use volume of any type based on your infrastructure. I can use NFS volumes. So these are cloud storages, cloud storage services, right? Google persistent disk, Azure file. So based on your infrastructure, you can use the values. Now, if you see, there is a volume of type called host path. What is host path volume? And there is a volume of type mtdir. So this is one question, guys. Interview they are asking, what is mtdir? So here there are not lot of places. Mtdir value. So this is we are not going to use. If you see, an mtdir volume is first created when pod is created, and it will exist as long as the pod is running. As long as the pod is running. But once the pod is deleted, the data also will be deleted. It is like a temporary value. Whenever, as long as your pod is running, the data will be there. If you use mtdir value, something like this, you can use something like this. You can mount with your container something like this, volumes, mtdir, you can mount. But this will be there as long as your pod is running. If container is crashed, if container is recreated in the pod, the data will be there. But if your pod is deleted, your data also will be deleted, mtdir. We will not use this mtdir. And there is another value called host path. Host path value. What is host path value? Like in Docker, what is local volume, guys? Like in Docker, what is local volume? In Docker, we have a local volume. What is local volume in Docker? We discussed. So this is my Kubernetes cluster now. My database pod is running on some node. I have a master. I have a workers. I have a master. I have a workers. I have worker 1, worker 2. This is master. So master has scheduled pod in one of the worker. Master has scheduled the pod in one of the worker as of now. Master has scheduled the database pod in one of the worker. The front end pods also running. This is a Mongo database pod, and we have a front end pod like Spring application. We have 2 replicas. We have 2 replicas for this, and we created a service. We have a 2 services: Mongo service, cluster IP. For this, we have another service, Spring app. This is node port. This is node port. Now, from outside, the end user is accessing using node IP and node port. So request is going to server. This kube proxy server, within that server you have a kube proxy, so that service will come into picture. This service is routing the traffic to this pod or maybe this pod. Now these pods are again accessing the database pod with the help of cluster IP service. So this is using service name for a communication. This pod is communicating with this pod with the help of service. Now here I have a database data. As of now, here I have a database data. Now whenever this pod is gone, this data is also gone. Whenever this pod is gone, this data is also gone. Now I want to use values. So there is a value called mtdir, but that is not recommended. That is like a temporary data. As long as your pod is running, your data will be there. If your container is deleted, still you have a data because you are using mtdir value. But mtdir is not recommended. So there is a value of type host path. What is the host path? It is like a local value. You are mounting some host machine directory with your container directory, your pod container directory, host path value. Now if I use host path value, your pod container directory is mounted with this file system. Now if your pod is gone, where will be your data? If you use volumes, in this file system, in this file system. And again, if your pod is gone and you are using volumes, your data will be part of your volume and your pod will be recreated. Who will recreate the pod? Who will recreate the pod? Who will manage the pod life cycle? Pod will be immediately recreated if it is gone also. Who will create the pod? The controller. Whatever controller you use. Suppose this pod has been created by a replica set or a stateful set, whatever it is, it will be recreated. And again, since you have defined a values, will your data will be restored? I mean to say, again, this folder is getting mounted with this directory. So do we have a data again? If I use volumes, so host path volume is the directory or the file system of your your worker machine where your pod is running. So how to use volumes? In our manifest now, how to define the volumes? There are two things. Here. One is volumes and other one is volume mounts. I need to define volumes. This one, volume mounts. Volumes will be under your pod spec and under your pod spec. Under pod specification, you have to define a volumes under pod spec. Volume mounts is nothing but you are mounting with your container. So this I have to define and under pod spec for containers. Under this, under pod spec, under containers, I have to define this volume mounts. So as I discussed, I am defining a volumes for a pod. As I told, can I use the same volume for multiple containers? As I discussed, pod contains one or more, pod contains one or more containers, and whatever volumes or whatever storage we specify to that pod, can it be shared between those two containers if required? Can we share the volumes between the containers if they are in the same pod? So volumes we are defining at a pod level. Volumes we are defining at a pod level. Volumes we are defining at a pod level. And if you want to mount, you can use this one at a container level. So volumes I can define here same as container level volumes. Name. I can give whatever I want to give, value, name. Here, what type of volume you want to use? What type of volume you want to use? So what type of volume I want to demonstrate as of now? Host path. and path in that server where you want to which folder you want to mount. I'm trying to give something like this slash temp slash something like this Mongo data. Volume name, what type of value? Host path, something like this. Where exactly? Host path. If you see something like this, you are defining a values, name, you can give name, path, host path, where you want to mount in that server. This is optional field. So you have defined a values under spec. Now, if I want to use this value, with containers, at container level, what I need to mention, guys? How can I map this value to the container? What options we are using here? If you see, values is under pod spec. I have defined a value, and if I want to use this value, what option we are using at the container level? Value mounts, value mounts, something like this. At the container level, for this container, I can define a value mounts. Again, name. Here we have a mount path. Now, what is my mount path? What is my mount path for this container? To which? What is my mount path for this container? To which folder I have to mount so that the database data will be mounted with this value? For Mongo database, what is the mount path? Where exactly it is maintaining? Data slash db. Data slash db. So values, guys, order doesn't matter. In placement matter. Containers and values are siblings. So this I can define here also. Here in the sense where exactly container is starting. Something like this. Here. I can define values here, containers here. Value mounts are under containers at a container level. This is how I can define a value, host path value. Now what is happening? This is your value. This is your whatever I said, like temp slash Mongo. This is your data slash db. This is my value, host path value, which I am mounting with my container. So let me use this. Let me update my manifest file. I am using with host path value. Now to the database here. I can define a values. I can define values here, or I can define a values here, something like this, values, name, volume name, MongoDB. Just I'm giving something like this val. And what type of volume you want to use? As of now, I want to use host path. Host path value. Now, here under this, what is the path in the host? Like I can, if I want to use under home, under Ubuntu, if I want to mount with some directory, I can mount, or I can say something like this in the root file system of the server. In the root file system of the server, I can mention where, wherever I want to take a back, mount to whatever directory I want to mount. This is your server host file system. Something like this. I'm giving Mongo data. Under server temp directory, Mongo data. Wherever you want to take. This is host path value. In a container level, I have to define volume mounts. Volume mounts. Name, again name. Here, I can give some name. But how we are linking between volumes and volume mounts? What is common point here? I have defined a volumes. I have defined a volumes. I am defining a volume mounts. What is the common point here? What is the common point if you observe? The volume name and volume mount name. The volume name, whatever you have give, and volume mount name, both are same. So now this is your container directory. It is like something like this, guys. This is something like this. In the background, it is something like this. It is something like this. In the background, it will mount something like this. What is this? Your host directory is mounting with this container directory. Volumes and volume mounts here. So now, let me save this manifest file. If I give ABC here, I have to give ABC here. Whatever you want to mount, both has to match. Your volume name and volume mount name should be same so that it will mount. So give some meaningful name, Mongo, something like this. So let's save this file. Since I am using replica set, this will not, it will not apply automatically. The changes will not be replicated. So what I am doing, I am deleting the replica set, the Mongo database replica set. kubectl delete this Mongo database replica set. I am deleting. This replica set part doesn't have a values. Now I am going to apply this one. Whatever manifest I am using value. Now kubectl get all. If you see now, this database part is coming. Now do we use, like, are we using volumes with this pod now? Now if I describe this pod, I'll come to know kubectl describe pod name. Now, are we using volumes for this pod? Now, volumes and volume mounts. Container is volume mount. Data/db is mounted from this one. This data/db is mounted from this directory, MongoDB val. This one, host path. Now, if I go to this server, 142, if I go to this server 142, this worker 2, that is where my database pod is running. So here, my database pod container is running, right? You can see that Mongo database is running. Now, if I see this directory, do you see this folder? So what is this data? Which data is this? This data is from which container? Which container has mounted with this directory? So we are using the Mongo database pod. We use this volume. This volume is mounted with this container directory. Now my data is in the host machine. Now if something goes wrong with my, let me access and insert some data before I delete. Now let me insert some data. Now in this server, we are having a value. So this is where my database data is there. Now if something goes wrong with my pod, if my pod is gone, do I need to worry about the data now? kubectl delete pod. I am deleting this pod intentionally now. Before deleting, where my pod is running, in which machine my pod is running? My pod is running in this server 142. So now let me delete the pod. Let me delete this pod. Now again my pod is back. My pod is back in the same server. Same server. Now my data is there. If you see, still I have a data, even though my pod is gone and recreated. Still I have a data. Now again, if it goes down also, pod is recreating with same volume information. Pod is getting recreated with same volume information. Again, I am getting a new pod. Do you see the data loss now? the data is not lost. Now let me ask this question. What if scheduler is try to schedule this part to another node because this node is full, and or this node is down? What if this pod is created in another node? If pod is created in another node, and initially my pod was running in this node, now pod is moved to another node. Will this pod will be able to use this host path, this server, or it will create one new volume, new directory here? So if pod is moved to another node due to some issue, your pod is down, and pod is moved to another node, will you be able to access this? A new directory will be created, and it will mount with this new host path. Again in this server, temp MongoDB. But some data is here. Do you see a data consistency? Do you see a consistent data in this scenario? Or data will be inconsistent? Data will be inconsistent, right? If pod is moving around your cluster, if you are using host path value, if pod is moving around in your worker machines, the data will not be consistent. Partially, already some data is in this server. Now pod moved to this server. Some data is here. So you see a data inconsistency. Now, I need some process outside of Kubernetes so that it can sync the data. You may need to have some kind of a rsync between your servers so that your data will be in sync between all these machines. This is one option. Otherwise, can I go for a external values? Can I go for external values instead of using host path? Can I use external values like NFS? If I am using cloud based Kubernetes clusters, can I go for a EBS? Or if I am using Azure cloud, can I go for a Azure disk? Azure file? If I am using Google cloud, GKE, Google persistent disk? So I can go for external values, external storages. Instead of using host path, I can go for external storages, external values. So if I have a NFS, instead of using host path, you can use host path, guys. I am not saying you should not use host path, but there should be some process which will sync your server data between the servers. You should have some process which will sync your data. Otherwise, I can go for a net external values. Now, instead of using host path, if I use NFS, your process is running here, but data is getting maintained outside of your Kubernetes. You are outside of your worker machine. Now, if pod is moving around, If pod is moving around in your cluster, if I use these volumes, do I need to worry? If you are using external volumes, data is not in this worker. Data is not getting maintained in this worker, external volume. Now, if your pod is moving around, do we need to worry about the data consistency? So the data will be consistent because you are using external storages. Your pod is moving around, but you are using external values like NFS, EBS, Azure disk, Azure file, Google persistent disk. Okay. So we can use these values based on your requirement. Whatever volume you want to use, you can use. You can use host path volume, you can use NFS, or you can use EBS based on your infrastructure. If I am using Azure AKS Kubernetes cluster, I can use these two storage services. I can use these two. If I am using EKS, I can integrate Kubernetes with cloud storages like EBS. If I am using GKE, I can use Google persistent disk as a storage to mount. And if you are using bare metal Kubernetes cluster, bare metal in the sense managed, self-managed, bare metal Kubernetes cluster, I can go for NFS if you want to have a shared values. So we can use NFS. What is NFS, guys? What is NFS? Network file system. Network file system. So we can access our file system over network. It's not a local storage. It's a network storage. So we can access the file system over network, NFS. So I can have a NFS server and I can use that NFS server storage with these servers. So we can install NFS and we can use NFS. So we need some kind of some kind of a network storage. Now I will set up a NFS server. I will set up a NFS server. As of now, I don't have a NFS server. So let me create NFS server. Then we will come to the Kubernetes. Now I don't have a NFS. I don't have a NFS storage as of now. What I will do, I will set up my own NFS. I will set up my own NFS server. I will create one server. We will install NFS server software. We'll set up NFS directory, which I want to share with these servers. So I don't have a NFS. I will create one NFS one machine and I will install NFS software, and we will try to use that NFS as a volume in a Kubernetes pod. So I have to set up one server to install NFS. What is required in these machines? If I want to mount my pods, what software is required in these machines? We discussed in AWS case. What software is required in these machines if I want to use? What softwares are required in these machines if I want to mount this NFS with these pods? If I want to mount with NFS, what software is required in your machines? NFS is again client server architecture. So if I want to mount this server directory or pod directory, what software is required in my machines? Client. Client software is required. So let me create one machine to set up NFS. You take whatever machine you want to take, Ubuntu machine or Red Hat machine, whatever you want to take, you can take. We are not going to install Docker, Kubernetes, anything. It is just for a storage purpose, network file system. I am creating one server, Red Hat server. We have to open the NFS port. What is the NFS port, guys? Because our Kubernetes machines will try to access this NFS directory, NFS server on some port. I have to open some port, NFS port. What is the NFS port? What is the NFS port? 2049. So if you are not sure, you can select there is an option NFS. So 2049. For now, let me open for all the IPs that port, NFS port. This is my NFS server. So let me connect to this server and install software, NFS software. So I'm trying to use some storage to maintain my pod data. I'm trying to use some storage. I'm trying to use some storage which I am mounting with my container file system. Network storage, network attached storage, NAS, or you can use SAN, storage area network. So NFS, network file system. So let me connect to this server if this server is up and running. Let me connect to this server. Is it a Kubernetes machine, guys? Is it a master machine or worker machine, whatever I am creating now? Is it part of your cluster? Is it have any relationship with your cluster? Like, is it a master or worker? Whatever machine I am going to create now? No. It's just one machine, NFS server. So I created one server, Red Hat server or Ubuntu server, whatever you want to use, you can use. Install NFS software. So using whatever package manager you want to use, you can use, and you can install the software NFS software. I'm using Red Hat machine, so let's install using apt package manager. So I don't have installation instructions. Let me use sudo apt install. I need to first update the package manager. Yes, it's a self-managed Kubernetes cluster, but it is nothing to do with this NFS. NFS is storage, right? You are using some storage. Instead of using that server storage, you are using NFS storage. So I am setting up a NFS myself. Sudo apt install. I don't think I have a NFS as part of Red Hat package manager. Sorry, so I'm using Red Hat machine. So this is Red Hat machine apt not found. So I need to use yum install. So there is no NFS package manager. Let me use Ubuntu machine, guys. I don't have installation instructions for Red Hat machine for NFS. Let me use Ubuntu machine. Why to waste the time? Just I need some server to install NFS. I don't have installation instructions for Red Hat handy. So let me use Ubuntu machine. This is one server. There is no relationship with your Kubernetes. It is one server. So once this server is up, we will install NFS. We have to set up a NFS directory. Then I can mount my Kubernetes pods. I can mount my Kubernetes pods with this NFS storage. I can mount the Kubernetes pods which are going to be running, which are going to be scheduled in these machines. We'll use whatever pods or containers which we are going to schedule in this Kubernetes machines. We'll use this file system, NFS file system. So let me connect to this. So let me, I used Ubuntu machine, sudo apt install nfs-kernel -server. I'm installing NFS software. I'll share the installation instructions. I have installed. NFS software in this machine. First, we need to set up our NFS directory, which directory you want to use in this server. So let me open the installation instructions, which I am going to share with you. So in Ubuntu, I just installed NFS software. We are going to set up one directory. That directory we are allowing client to share, client to mount. So I'm creating one directory. You can create one directory which you want to share with the clients, NFS clients. I installed NFS. I'm creating one directory, something like this, /mnt. Already it is there. So let me create something like this. I created one directory in this NFS server. This one I want to share with the clients. I am trying to set up a NFS file system. And I am going to change the ownership because there is no owner, there is no group, because this directory will be accessible from the client machines. So I am saying no owner, no group for this directory. And I am giving a 777 permissions for this directory. This is a shared file system. Then we have to do NFS settings. So we have to change some settings in this file so that the clients can access. The clients can access. So open this exports file folder. Here we need to give an access to the clients. So here, this is my directory. Star represents what here, guys? This directory can be mounted from any client, any IP. I have given star for now. If you want to give specific network, you can give specific network or specific IP. If you want to give, you can give. What is this meaning, right? This directory in this server, I am giving read write permissions, everything to any NFS client. Star represents any IP. So this is NFS setting. So I have updated this and I am trying to refresh that by executing this command. Now restart your NFS service. With this, my NFS setup is done. With this, my NFS server setup is done. And we have to open 2049 port in the security group. If it is not opened already, you have to open 2049 security group port. 2049 we open. Now, before I mount in my Kubernetes pods, what software I need to install in these machines, guys? In my Kubernetes machines, all machines, guys, worker machines also. What software I need to install in my Kubernetes machines before I use NFS with my pods? I have to install client software. I have to install client software in my Kubernetes. Client software in my Kubernetes machines. This software, NFS utils, NFS common in all the machines. So try to set up NFS server the way I have set up, and try to install NFS client software in your Kubernetes machines. Tomorrow we will see how can I use NFS value. Tomorrow we will see how can we use NFS value for our pods. Today you just try to set up NFS server and install client software in your Kubernetes machines. Install client software in your Kubernetes machines. This NFS-common in your Kubernetes machines. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. Today we just set up NFS server and we just installed client software in a Kubernetes machine. It's a one-time activity. It's a one-time activity. If you want to mount in the master, yes, master as well. If you want to mount some pod with NFS from the master, yes, in the master as well. If you are not mounting any pod with NFS from the master machine, it's not required. So try to install NFS client in all Kubernetes machines and NFS server setup. Tomorrow we'll continue, guys. Tomorrow also we have a class. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. Thank you.